So take us back. So you're from the Bay Area.
Mhm.
Is that where you grew up?
Yeah. Yeah. Walnut Creek, California.
Were your parents entrepreneurs, or did you have any experience in entrepreneurship?
My dad is a retired dentist. So a bit of some entrepreneurship there. And then actually my mom, like 8-ish years ago, yeah, I forget, 7 years ago, she actually started a mobile grooming business. So I guess a little bit of some entrepreneurial roots there.
S- Did you want to be a dentist, or was there any pressure to be a dentist?
Definitely never wanted to be a dentist, and luckily no pressure. My dad was always cool about just supporting me with what I wanted to do.
All the private equity VC in the area, did you have ambition to go and work for VC, or did you want to participate in that?
I will say one thing, it is interesting. There's this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Have you heard of that by Robert Kiyosaki? That was like the first big influential business book I read. It was less of like, what are your dreams? Like, what do you want to do that you absolutely love? And it was more like, what's something that's super safe where you know you'll be able to make a good income? And that actually led me and thought about the different paths. And I was like, well, I'm good at numbers. Accounting seems I'm interested in investing and all this. Accounting seems like a good sort of play. And then it just sort of led me down this chute where I ended up starting my career as a CPA. Early on, I wasn't super into the whole startup tech thing, although I started my career at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and then within 2 years, I was doing consulting for startups and like totally in the whole venture startup land in San Francisco. So I guess I ended up there anyways.
Yeah. So with your dad, so he was a practicing dentist that owned his own dentistry.
Correct.
Did he
Yeah.
expand, or did he start to acquire other competition in the area?
No, he wasn't the kind of like PE roll up mentality guy. It was really more just like build a great practice, provide for his family, create the living that he wanted for us, and much more of a not like the MBA type.
Do you think that's the differentiating factor is the MBA? Or what do you think that mentality is of where somebody has that I'm safe, I'm providing for my family versus I want to take a little bit of risk, lever up a little bit, and start to roll up my competition or even buy out my competition? What do you think separates that?
I feel like part of thinking about like for me and like our Wharton experience, I think it gives you a level of confidence maybe that you didn't have because you're learning all these great skills, but then also just being surrounded by these people, seeing what they're doing. And just over that 2 years, I feel like it just gets hammered into you, like this certain way of thinking about things. Like it's hard to even describe, but it's like, risk adjusted returns and like sustainable competitive advantage and like all this stuff that I'd heard about before. But I think when you get out, you just, I don't know, it like turns on some kind of a light bulb in you where you're like, I know I believe I can do this. But I mean, I don't think you need an MBA to do it. I started my own company in 2017, 2018, and it was a lot of fun and it was like really cool. It was a video production company. We got to work with like Snoop Dogg and incredible talent and all that. But I did so many things wrong. And I look back and I'm like, if I kind of wish I'd gotten the MBA before that because it polishes a lot of blind spots, I think.
When you say wrong, do you mean just with numbers, or do you mean partnerships, or uh, legal sense in regards to like setting up the wrong entity?
A lot of those things, but less like the entity stuff, more uh coming back to sustainable competitive advantage, scaling, like, is this a business I want to be in? Like, I think I might have looked at starting a video production company from scratch and looked at that and been like, is this a business I want to be in? Is this a desirable industry?
So you went from you were at PwC, you're an accountant, and
Yeah.
then where'd you go after that?
So I was there for 2 years. I was like, this is not for me. I don't want to become some partner at a big four accounting firm. I really wanted to start working with startups. And I was really interested in sort of like the kind of consulting aspect of things. And I had a friend who was working in this little boutique consulting business that was working purely with venture-backed startups. It was in San Francisco. I was living in San Francisco at the time, and it was really cool. I actually started as a basically like a glorified bookkeeper. Like I was going into these companies and like doing their bookkeeping, but then really quickly I got to, it was almost like a sales role where you're working with the founders and you're identifying needs and you're sort of pitching them on stuff. And then you're starting to do consulting and you're, building forecasting and revenue models and all this stuff. And it was really cool. Like I was literally ground level with some pretty big, like, pretty successful startups. There was Mopub that got bought by Twitter. There was Vungle that got bought by Blackstone. I mean, literally, yeah, like the guy who founded Bustle, we were sitting with him before he was right as he was creating the company.
So that was really your first exposure to startups then?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was there a moment there where a light turned on? It's like, I love this. I want to immerse myself in this. This is me. This is what I'm going to do.
I think at that time it was just cool, like seeing all those different things and having gone from working at a big in a corporate setting to all these like loft offices in San Francisco and people just hanging out wearing sweatshirts. And it was just really cool seeing that. And then just seeing all these different business models. I think one of the things that I was I never have, like, I think maybe I saw it then, and ever since then, I haven't been as into it, is the whole venture backed model. Just that model of like going out grinding for, VC fundraising. And I just saw that whole scene, and it wasn't, I think I realized it really wasn't for me. So I think I got exposed to a lot of cool stuff and cool business models. And I was interested in entrepreneurship, but I think I sort of said, okay, I don't think I want to go this venture.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. As I mentioned before, raising capital is such a waste of time. That's your focus. I mean, 99% of your focus is raising capital to get to the next round, and you lose sight of your target, you lose sight of your team, what you're actually building, product market fit. And it takes a really, really unique founder and person to maintain both of those, to maintain target, encourage folks along the way, but still maintaining those relationships and building those relationships to raise the capital. So I hear you on that.
I think too on that, I think part of what I saw is there was these people who were celebrating like they had like, whatever, conquered whatever after they had raised money. And I'm like, okay, you have a bunch of money now, but you got to go like do something. And I just saw, like you got to like build a business still, and I don't know. I think there was something about that I wasn't as big into.
Yeah. It's a weird thing. It's like you hit the lottery, but now you have to go be an employee. And so you're answering to folks, you're literally taking their direction. It's really tough. It's a really weird position to be in.
Yeah. And you also see these companies that end up in like no man's land where, they've been at it for like 70 years and they've been making like not very much money. And it just, there was something about the model that wasn't the return profile. It's like 1 in whatever 1,000, you're going to hit an absolute home run, and the other 999 times you're going to lose 4 years of your life. It was like, I don't know. It wasn't for me.
Chris, if you can pull this up, the company Lime, see if they were ever cash flow positive. But it's an interesting idea of you just throw money at something. I mean, and even other big corporations like Salesforce, they threw money at business development and just acquiring, and then they had to solve real problems.
Finally did it, huh?
They did. 3 consecutive years. Look at them. Yeah, it's an interesting and weird business, but I mean, I think it's here to stay. It's growing, and if you get into these bigger accelerator programs like YC or these big names like A16Z, supposedly you're gonna do really well. So I was reading a little bit about what you built at Verizon. What did you exactly do there? And I know you got Forbes 30 under 30, and a lot of people associate Forbes 30 under 30 with building a company or being a founder. I know there's some communication spots. What was that like?
Yeah, that was a super cool experience. So after working with those different startups, I then got hired to one of my clients to run finance and business development for them in San Francisco. I did that for a few years, and I should mention it worked out at San Francisco that of those startups, for whatever reason, like 80% of my time was on advertising technology startups. So I sort of started moving into the advertising space. I also had my godfather who has always been a career mentor. He was in the advertising space. And so I started feeling like moving. I'd always loved the idea of moving to New York. I thought it was just going to be for like 1 or 2 years. Ended up being 5 years because it was just amazing out there. I felt like I would love to go try living in Manhattan. And also it just felt like moving into big media, big advertising was a good move for my career. So I had a connection at Verizon, which at the time it was AOL, and then it became like AOL, Oath, and then Yahoo and Verizon. It was all these different companies, a lot of mergers and acquisitions. It was cool because I started at the company in this sort of like internal management consulting group. But also around this time, I realized I really liked the sort of sales, business development side of things, as opposed to, just like the bookkeeping, finance side. And I was working in this group for like 6 to 9 months, and it didn't feel like the best fit. It was a lot of like data analysis and creating PowerPoint slides and stuff. And so I started within the company just looking for other groups that I also saw I had access. I could see what the salespeople there were making, and it was really crazy. So I was like, I want to do that. That looks cool. And I just started looking for opportunities there, and I got kind of connected with these. I was actually these guys who had been acquired by Verizon. So they were like a little startup within the company, and I started working with them. I should mention, so I was very focused on the video side of things. There was a lot of problems with Verizon's video business at the time, and that became a big focus of mine. And these folks it was a video startup that had been acquired at Verizon called Vidable, and that was all video advertising, and they had some business development openings there. And I went and I basically changed jobs. I went and started working for them. And it was cool because we were kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall of like, it was kind of like wild west of advertising technology times back then. And I was being asked to work on one area, and it was like pushing a boulder uphill, super like, it was just really rough. It was a rough sell. People weren't really buying what we were offering. But then I had one client, it was actually Fox Sports. They were like, I started up this conversation with them, and it was more around ads adjacent to content. We were just sort of selling like ad inventory, kind of like an ad network type model. But what Fox Sports needed at the time was distribution of their content and the ads adjacent to them. And we weren't really doing that as a business. It wasn't as big of a focus at Verizon. And so I basically went to my boss and his boss, and I was like, I know you're asking me to sell this, but it seems like there's actually a need, like product market fit potentially in this area. Can I have, I want permission to have 6 months to try this out and sort of try to incubate this other business. And see if it works. If it doesn't, fine, I'll do something else. But I think there's really something here. And it was crazy. It was the easiest sell ever. Like, it turned out every major publisher needed this. It very quickly turned into like it was one of the fastest growing business lines at the company. And
Wow.
it started as this little like ragtag group of 3 people. and we were growing too fast to even support the business. And then it got rolled out across this larger group of 40 people. It just was like a total home run.
You increased revenue to 80 million. Is that right?
Yeah, we built it into an $80 million business. So, and it was pretty cool too, because the video business at the company was really struggling, and it sort of reversed the course of like the overall video business at the company. So
was that instinct, or was that a mentor that helped you understand that this thing was really tough to sell, but there's this product over here that has product market fit and people actually need it, and I should go hustle that? Here's where it's really tough in corporate, where people get out of their lane and say, hey, I'd like to do this and I like to do it this way. I think approaching your boss and your boss's boss took a lot of courage, and then also took a big leap of faith from them as well to allow you to do that. Was that an instinct, or was it mentorship?
I think I think at first I was excited to be in a business development role. And then I think I was a little bit frustrated with the fact that I was selling something that nobody really wanted and it wasn't really working. And then over here, I was having this one conversation that was turning into this big deal that was exciting. It was cool. It was a cool product, with a cool company that needed what I had. And I'm like, well, I think it was just thinking, it was pretty simple. It was like, okay, if this company needs it, there's got to be some other companies that need it. And they really needed it. It was turning into a pretty big deal. And I didn't really have a lot to lose, because it wasn't really working over here anyways.
That's something it takes. Take a product to 80 million in revenue, and then you were introduced to Fox. Is this where you got the introduction and then you moved over to them?
It was much later. It ended up being maybe like 6 years later, but it full circle. I ended up taking the job of the guy who I was doing negotiations with at that time.
Interesting. Okay.
So, yeah.
And so
he left the company, and I saw the job opening and I texted him and he was like, oh yeah. And then I had sort of a nice in at Fox Sports.
Were you still in New York at the time?
Yeah.
Was this through COVID, or was this like early 19?
This was before COVID. Yeah, it was like 20. This was like 2017, because it was 2018 that I started the video production company.
Were you doing this simultaneously of Fox?
No, so the flow was I was at Verizon from roughly 2015 to 2018. And then I left Verizon. I started the video production company from scratch. I did that for about 3.5 years through COVID, which was horrible. Video production and COVID did not mix well. And then it was 2021, the beginning of 2021, when I moved to LA and got the job at Fox.
Got it. In Verizon, what was the biggest learning moment for you with building? You said it couldn't keep up with your team. It was selling, you were growing.
Basically, the way it worked was there was an existing team that was sort of working on other stuff. And we took the business that I was incubating and basically rolled it out across a larger, like kind of an already existing group, but it completely changed the focus of that group. So it was sort of like a big reorg, like restructuring of people and product to focus on a new business line, basically.
Okay. That makes sense.
So it was sort of funded in this, like, it was like existing people, resources, all that. And they sort of pointed it in a different direction.
So you're now at Fox. What was your day-to-day at Fox?
It was a lot of World Cup to start. Honestly, the experience I got at Fox was pretty amazing. It was, I would just say it, like, all of a sudden, I'd had a lot of sales experience by this point, because my role at Verizon was very sales heavy. But I think what was cool about the Fox experience was it was business development at the highest level. It was the biggest players in the industry, like Twitter and Amazon and Apple. And, the most marquee content portfolio, MLB, NFL, World Cup. And I'd had some experience in the sports space, but it was cool getting exposed to the sports space. And then, but I felt like I really learned a lot on the business development side, like contract side, negotiating. So that was that, you know. So to answer your question, it was a range of things, but I would say it boiled down to a lot of like deal negotiations. So, like content licensing, basically looking at what are deals I can be doing to bring in more money for the company. And then there was this whole other side, which I think has just been this thread throughout my career, which is basically incubating new businesses for the company. So one of like, if I could say like one of my biggest sort of lasting like marks I left on the company was launching its FAST business, free ad supported TV. And, launching with like 15 different partners. And so basically looking at new businesses to incubate and build there, which is sort of what I did at Verizon too.
So you have all these new skills, I would say really perfected skills, an accountant, bookkeeper, but true skills like go-to-market, growth, business development, which is the lifeblood of a startup. How did you get into ETA? I mean, you're primed for this, but ETA is a whole different game. It's a whole different beast from what you've been doing. I mean, you have incredible skills to do it, which you're a superpower. You have rocket boosters, whatever you acquire. But how did you get from that and make the jump to ETA?
I'd been at Fox for, I guess, a couple years, and I thought I was going to stay in media and just, kind of just double down and do the big media thing for the next 10 years. And I was looking at, okay, I was currently a vice president. I was like, all right, what do I need to do to get to become a senior vice president, executive vice president? And I figured getting an MBA from a top school would help with that. Did the whole executive MBA path, got into Wharton, and I was there, and it was just, it was really cool seeing and hearing what everyone else was doing. But there were a couple of classmates, and I was talking to them, and I was like, well, what are you working on? They're like, oh yeah, I'm like looking at buying these businesses. I'm like, what are you talking about buying businesses? And they're like, oh yeah, like I'm looking at these businesses, and that guy, he's a ex NFL player. You know who I'm talking about. And I'm like, oh, he just has a ton of money. That makes sense. But then I was talking to a couple other people. They're like, oh yeah, I'm doing that too. And I'm like, and then I started learning. One of my now mentors and close friends, Sunny Patel, he, shout out Sunny. He's the one. I was talking to him, and I picking his brain. I'm like, how does this work? And he's like, oh yeah, you can finance it all through debt. And I just started learning about this and realizing this might be possible for me. And I would say this was a total light bulb moment for me, where I think by this time in the MBA, I think I was almost a year in, I realized I was ready for something new. And it was like the risk profile, the risk adjusted returns, the model. It was sort of everything that was the opposite of what I was saying I didn't like about the venture backed side, that it's like cash flow, profitable from day one, at least theoretically, and just like everything about it. I absolutely loved it. And I just totally got bit by the bug, and I started reading all the books and listening to all the podcasts, and it was very quick where I was like, this is what I'm doing. And I started submitting LOIs and all that stuff.
What was your process when you first started? Did you just follow Chelfen's book, or did you just follow your classmates?
I did a lot of things. I mean, I was listening to, Buy Then Build and the Harvard Business School book, and listening to Acquiring Minds. And so just really devouring as much content as I could on it. I was also talking to classmates. I was like cornering classmates to learn more about it. I took Bob Chalfen's class. I actually did a independent study project at Wharton on ETA, which was really cool. But I think what was most valuable is just literally starting to submit LOIs, Because I feel like there's people who, they learn a ton about stuff, but they just never get started. And I feel like there's just, that's how you really learn. You start getting your feet, your hands dirty and all that. And so my my thesis just kept changing. It was like, first I thought, because I had this background in media and advertising, I would stick in that area. And so I was looking at sort of like digital e-commerce businesses. And then my my thesis just kept changing over time. And but that was my process.
To find deal flow, did you just scroll the main websites? Did you network with folks? Did you get involved in rotaries?
I tried a number of different approaches. I ended up mostly using listing sites. So like Biz by Sell, and there's a few of them, and then also talking with brokers were the two
Did you
main
find that to be
ones.
helpful? Brokers?
I actually didn't.
Hmm.
I know a lot of people have, but I spent a lot of time on it, and I mean, it might have turned out to be helpful, but the deal I ended up finding was through Biz by Sell, and I just pulled the trigger on that. And it seems like there's no like right path. Everyone
Yeah.
follows a different path, and but honestly, I think that the listing sites they kind of get like a bad rap. There's a lot of really good businesses on there. A lot of people write them off. They think, you need to do this, you build this whole database, do a whole proprietary search. And it's like, no, there's these sites and there's businesses for sale.
It just depends on the person. Some people take 3 months to find something. Some people take 24 months. A lot of people get burnt out. A lot of people go to search funds where they'll partner, and so they have the funding. When you were searching, how long did it take you to find your deal?
It was super fast, which in hindsight, maybe should have been a red flag or something. That well I should say, I guess from beginning to end it was probably over a year, because I kept submitting different LOIs, so I guess it was longer. But what happened with me is I had a light bulb moment pretty far into my search where I really got excited about franchises. And once I got excited about that, it was really fast. It was like 2 months or something where I had submitted the LOI, and then I closed on the business maybe, 2 or 3 months after that. So it was like 4 or 5 months once I
Was this
changed
an
my thesis.
was this an acquisition of an existing business or a build? Oh, it was. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
With franchise, it could go either way. I've looked at franchise myself. Um, what are your thoughts on the drag of royalty fees, the advertisement fees?
It's funny, even lately, the businesses that my portfolio is starting to grow and do better. And then you start looking at the royalties line, and like, as you start earning more, you're like, oh, I'm actually paying a lot of money to these folks. So even lately, I'm like, oh, those numbers are actually getting like kind of bigger. But I think that as long as you're with the right franchise and they are doing what they're supposed to be, what a franchise is supposed to be doing, it's actually sort of like ETA on steroids, where, you're buying with ETA, you're buying a business because it's a going concern. It's got a proven business model. It has product market fit. It's got revenue. With a franchise, you're just sort of further, and that's rather than starting from scratch, right?
Mm.
Like, you're paying money for that, whether you're doing it with debt or with cash. Whereas someone else might say, oh, I'm just going to go start my own business. Then I have to pay $0. But it's like, yeah, but it might take you 5 years to get to where that business is, and you might never get there. I think the franchise royalty, it's just taking it one step further where you're paying a little bit more. I think the biggest value is just the brand. It's like, I mean, I can talk about a deal that, a partnership that we just worked out, which I think is going to be huge for it. We've already done it once. We're doing it at another location. It was so easy to do it because we are a national brand. Versus if I'm with Mathnasium now, if I was going to this partner and it was like Colby's tutoring service, they would have like they probably wouldn't have done the deal. It's those kinds of things where you're paying, you're paying whatever it is, 10%, 15% of your revenues, but it if you do it right, it can accelerate your growth curve super fast, and you're paying a lot less for marketing. Like our marketing, it's basically just like you can kind of view it like a marketing budget almost. And then there's actually a lot of other things you get to, like technology and obviously the product, like a proprietary product, but I've been happy with it for the franchise that I'm in.
Good. What was your conviction with Mathnasium versus other franchise? Was that your first find, or did you have to look for that?
I am passionate about wellness and that space, and also just like health and fitness. And so I was actually mostly looking at health, wellness, fitness franchises.
Okay.
And then I also was looking at a bunch of like pet concepts, which were doing really well at the time. And then it was sort of random, but there was like 2 or 3 education concepts I was looking at. And I think it was like I had the math background, and I had listened to a few podcasts with Mathnasium owners and I just was very impressed with everything that I was hearing. And it was like one of the things for me that I knew I was going to be spending a lot of time with this path, with whatever I did. And so I wanted it to be personally meaningful. And so, there was like a lot of different franchise concepts out there that felt just like, I don't know, it's fine, but it doesn't excite me on like a personal level. Whereas I felt like, okay, if with math tutoring and, this Mathnasium, you're genuinely making a positive impact in the lives of kids. And it goes beyond just teaching them math. Like you're creating this really positive environment for them. And it just felt like, okay, I'm actually doing good in the world. And then I think what happened was there was a Mathnasium franchise for sale on BizBuySell. And at the same time, I was reaching out to the corporate, the Mathnasium corporate, and it turned out that their chief development officer was a Wharton grad, a WEMBA grad from 2 years before. And it sort of just was like, all right, I can get cute and kind of keep looking around, but there's this business that's for sale. It's a good business. And I was like, I'm just going to go for it.
Was there any moment when you took that over the first location? How many locations do you have?
3 now.
3 locations. The first location, was there any moment where you're like, I saw the numbers, but now that I'm in seat, there's a little bit of a different story. I should have kept looking. I should have looked somewhere else or looked at a different franchise.
I think it's similar to doing like Wharton and like an executive MBA, where if I had known what I was getting myself into, I would never have pulled the trigger. But I was too dumb to know what I was getting myself into. And so I just did it. And it has been a crazy ride and absolutely terrifying at times and, super awesome at times. But now I'm just now getting to a point where I'm like, okay, I think this is going to have been worth it a couple years later. And then, there's this J curve. And then after that, it just gets better and better and better. But if you talk to any franchise owner, they'll be like, the first year is horrible. Second year, also pretty bad. And then after that, it gets really good. So honestly, the first year was like one of the toughest. It was just absolutely brutal. And I don't know if it was like I had rose-colored glasses, or if, you see numbers on a spreadsheet and you're like, oh, I can do that. But like those times, there are just these times that are absolutely really, really brutal. And seeing it on a spreadsheet is totally different than being in that seat for months.
There's always this moment of, what did I get myself into? Did you have the same excitement, adrenaline rush that you did when you were building this $80 million revenue company? Or did you have more excitement there? Meaning the numbers, they're just zeros, but you're building something for yourself this time.
I think that it was different because with that, I had basically no downside at Verizon. So it was just really fun. I would say like my experience at Verizon is like, I was young, we were killing it. There was no downside, because you're a W-2 employee, and we were crushing it. So it was just really fun. I think with ETA, I mean, when things start working, I would say it is so, so rewarding, when you have like, I mean, basically the business that I bought, it was really underperforming. It was really undermanaged. It was not making money. And at the time, I mean, it was making money, but it was owner operated. So if you install a manager, it starts breaking even basically. It was also fun because a lot of what we did, it was using skills from the past, like business development skills and partnerships. And so when you have a thesis on something, you take on a personal guarantee, you put everything on the line, and then it works. It's really, really rewarding. What I will say is, I don't know, maybe it's like I'm older, the stakes are a little higher. I'm married now, we're thinking about family stuff. And it's not like I'm out of the woods yet. It's not like I've just like made it or something yet. As like a true entrepreneur, you wake up every day and you're like, you got to, I mean, what I tell myself is like, I literally have this mantra almost. I'm like, don't look down. Cause every day there's, it's like, I think this is going to work. I think this is going to work, but it is scary. And I think, so it's super exciting. It's super gratifying, but it's scary, and you have to really put yourself in a mindset where you don't let that fear control you.
Yeah, you're responsible for your employees. You're responsible for your livelihood, your family. Are you planning on to continue to acquire, building, and staying in the same vertical? Or are you planning on doing another franchise?
Definitely going to continue growing within Mathnasium. I feel like we're just now really starting to hit our stride as a business and as a portfolio. So we're at 3 now. My goal is to get to 6 by the end of, let's see, basically adding 2 a year. So like, I guess another year and a half to get to 6. My wife and I, we are really interested in like the wellness space. So we've sort of talked about something in that area.
Do you think those are like a fad, or do you think they're going to fizzle out? Because I know there's a few of them that are coming on the market. They look really cool, but do you think it's going to last?
What like which concepts?
Say like cold plunges and all these things.
Yeah, we're interested in if we do go this route, it won't be that. And I do think that there are some of those things I would be concerned about them being fads. I would also be concerned about, recession resistance, where it's like, if you're paying $400 a month and you're getting access to a cold plunge and a sauna, it's like, it's an easy thing to cut when things get really tough. There's also like AI. And so I think about AI, and idea of diversifying at some point is also interesting. So what we're actually really interested in that we talked about is more like sort of like retreats and like healing spaces, like where basically you can go, because my wife's a clinical psychologist and also like certified yoga instructor. So we're both super into that whole kind of world of, retreats and like meditation, yoga, all that stuff. And we really love this idea of just, as things get crazier and crazier in the world, with AI, things are only getting crazier. Anxiety's only going up. Depression's only going up. Creating these spaces for people where they can heal and chill. And if we do go that route, it probably wouldn't be a franchise, I would imagine. So,
okay. Did you ever think about creating your own franchise?
I've actually thought about it in relation to this idea a little bit. But I would only want to do that if I felt like I had a concept that was really working super well, and I was looking at ways to scale it more quickly. I wouldn't really want to set out and like, I'm going to start a franchise. It also is a completely different profile. It starts to get a little bit closer to that venture-backed side of things, where it's like, which I'm not as interested in, I guess, personally.
Yeah. Because the goal is, as a franchisor, getting to 70, 80, 90 units and then selling to private equity. So you take on some venture dollars, you get to 90 and then you sell. I'm just trying to figure out, how can you articulate in today's world of marketing budget with SEO kind of dying, and everything moving to people searching on TikTok and and ChatGPT, and then CRMs. Like, what value do franchise really provide these days?
I think the number one is the brand. And then I would say that for sure. And then, then there's the other things that you hear a lot. There's the product, although any business has, if you buy a business, it's probably has a working product. There are processes and systems, but I think that's if you're super sharp, you can kind of figure that piece out. Mathnasium has some pretty cool reporting and technology stuff, which I personally, the way I'm wired, wouldn't really want to have to figure out. So that's that's nice. I do really though just think it comes back to that brand where we literally we opened a new location late in 2025, and we just have leads coming in. I mean, it's just leads just come in. I mean, that's amazing. That doesn't happen in business. And so,
Right.
and that's the value is people are like, oh, Mathnasium, I've heard of that, so.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's great if the brand is McDonald's or Jersey Mike's or these brand names that people recognize. I think it's really tough to say, okay, Colby's retreats and wellness, and we're going to franchise it. The brand name's not there, and it's really tough to do that. And how are people doing that today?
Yeah. And building that brand, you can build a brand, but it takes time. That's not something you can do overnight. So that's where like we talked about before, it's if you can, you could build a brand over 5 to 7 years, or if you just want to cash flow now and you want to license a brand, that's basically what you're doing.
It's challenging. People that are trying to start franchises today have a lot of courage because it's really tough. I applaud them for trying and doing that. Here's a question. Is there a new McDonald's or a New Jersey Mike's that's going to come to market that hasn't been out yet?
In the food
and not
space
just in the
specifically,
food.
or okay,
No, not just in the food. I'm just saying the name brand. Everybody knows what a McDonald's is. Most people know what Jersey Mike's is. People know what Midas is or Jiffy Lube, but these are old brands. They're probably 50 plus years.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think what is cool about the franchise space is you do see these brands that, and it's a small number. So this is why you do start getting into the venture backed, that more of that risk profile where it's more of a home run model. Cause I think there are, I don't know what the numbers are, but, the percentage of franchises that, or, businesses that go out to be franchisors that fail. I mean, that's a tough thing. And it's a lot lower probability you're going to succeed than if you just if you become a franchisee. But you do see these Mathnasium is a great example. I don't know, 10 years ago, I think they might've had 100 franchises or something. And now they're at 1,200. So,
wow.
Yeah. And there's another Mathnasium franchisee who I know well. He's getting into the a Pilates concept. They're growing super fast. So you look at something like Orange Theory, right? They just went like this, and now they're, I think, contracting a bit. I just don't think there's going to be that many of them.
Are you planning on staying in the franchise world for a while? Or are you wanting to get out? Do you have any ambition to go back to corporate America is the question.
No.
Now, are you open to being an advisor for any startups or anything to do with venture-backed companies?
I think if it was the right sort of mission, I might be interested. I think if I did go back to corporate America, it would be under very different terms, where what I'm trying to do now with ETA is getting to the point where I want to get to the point where I don't need to be working, right? You're working because you're working on something that you're super passionate about, but, your basic needs are covered and you're really just able to focus on what you're passionate about. So if there was the right opportunity, but I probably wouldn't I don't know. I don't think I would do it for very long. I love, I do love the ETA space. There's something
Yeah.
about it that's super, super cool.
And you're
So
involved with Wharton's Venture Lab, right?
yeah,
In what
yeah,
capacity?
so I I got recognized as one of their Perlman Fellows last year, which has been really cool. So that sort of helped me get into that like Wharton ETA and Venture Lab community. And now I'm a expert in residence there on the franchising side. So I just recently did a franchising talk for them. Um, so it's kind of funny. It's like I, f- I feel like my whole career has been, like I keep changing areas. So I feel like it'd be kind of crazy to move out of the franchise space now because I've kind of,
Yeah.
I've learned that. But I think, ETA in general is a cool space. So it wouldn't be moving too far if I just stay within ETA.
I heard that franchising is kind of an addiction where you get one, like you were talking about, going through those growth pains of no revenue, the cyclical nature of the business. You figure it out, you adapt, you move forward, and then you acquire number two, number three.
I think for me, where I personally find my headspace is I feel like if I was optimizing just for net worth, I would. Because I do think there's this path where once you kind of figure out the franchising space, and part of what I'm working on right now is building out a shared services organization. So this like foundational layer of it's actually hiring offshore employees on the HR side, the admin side, finance,
Mm.
and sort of building out those functions. And once you do that, you can apply them to different brands and you can diversify. I also love the idea of diversifying. Um, but once it's not a linear path. It's not like, I mean, you if you listen to a lot of these franchising podcasts, they start out with one and then they're at two in year two, and then they're at four in year three, and then they're at like 12 in year four, and then they're at, 25 in year five. Like it's this crazy line. And so if you just stick with it, it's a very dependable path to
Mm.
really making good money. But I weigh that with like personal, other personal stuff, and also just work-life balance and
Yeah.
all that.
And risk tolerance. How do you get somebody with a family of four to jump from their stable job to say, I'm going to go open up a Midas, or I'm going to go open up a Jersey Mike's or Mathnasium?
One of the main reasons I got into franchising is because I actually felt like, I had taken a swing with the video production business. It was when I was, single, living in Manhattan, and this was whatever, it was 6 years later or 7 years later, and like I was married now, and I'm like, I really want this to work. If this doesn't work, this is really gonna suck. Like I felt like I was at a point where I wanted to make sure it worked, and the franchise model just felt a lot more solid. It felt
Mm.
like maybe the ceiling was a little lower, but the floor felt much higher. I think for that type of person who really wants to make sure it's going to work, I actually think franchising is a good route to go.
When you started this video company, you had tremendous success. How did you get Snoop Dogg and the other folks to join you?
Let's see. It was a lot of parlaying different things. So I was able to parlay when I was at Verizon. Forbes was a client, and then also I had the Forbes 30 under 30 connection, and I got, we were this like dinky little production company, but we got included because of that connection. We got included in an RFP process for Forbes for creating video, like short docu series for them.
Oh,
And
sick.
we won that business, which was really cool. And then basically we were just, once we had that, we were making a Forbes docuseries, and then we were able to go out and people want to be part of Forbes docuseries. And so we got, Cedric the Entertainer and
That's
Armin van
funny.
Buren and Snoop Dogg, and it was really cool. I've heard about that trend. It's like the non-smartphone trend.
Dude.
Are you liking it?
So I'm using it for ETA.
Uh-huh.
All I needed was a local number. I feel like I have tremendous success with people answering the phone when I use a local number, but I didn't want to get like just a Google number or some random number. I wanted like a number that I can build my reputation with. And I love it, dude. Like it's such a weird and different feeling from picking up your iPhone or whatever to picking this up. Like for some reason, I know in the back of my mind, I have to do one thing on here. Like
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
Like I either have to respond to a text message or respond to a missed call. Like those are the only things that I can do. Versus if I pick this up and I'm like in a message and I go back and I'm like, oh wait, Kobe texted me, Chris texted me. Let me. And my intention was to go to an email. It's so weird, but the train of thought and productivity, like I leave my smartphone downstairs, and if I need to
Mm.
text, I'll just use my computer, but I just cold call and like dial on this on this flip phone, dude, and the productivity is exponential. And so I love it.
My wife was telling me I should get on that train.
I'm gonna do a 30-day like full detox. Like my phone, like it's just going off, and I'm just gonna walk around with this thing. Now it's pretty impractical if you have to like use Uber and stuff, which I think there's other phones on the market.
Mm.
They're starting to use or to integrate Uber and stuff, um, but if you think about it, you can use this phone, but you have to like pre-plan. Like, okay, I'm gonna go out to dinner. I need a pre-plan of where I'm gonna park, how I'm gonna pay for parking, because there's no app to do it. So it's like, it's a little difficult. But if you're not going anywhere, I mean, it's not bad.
That's so cool. I
Yeah,
I love that.
I'm having a good time. I think I need it. I just brain and with this podcast, I have all the apps on my phone now. So TikTok and this and this and this, and it's just like okay, too much, too much. So I tend to leave it places, and then just like I said, use messaging on my computer.
Yeah. That route of like just going all in and like learning all this stuff. It's so bad for your mental health, like
Yeah, man.
just like really digging in like the social media and, I mean, and now with AI and like, it's kind of tough. So I feel like I'm actually trying to I've lately made like I used to just devour ETA podcasts. I would listen to like a lot more business podcasts. And now I'm just making a decision. I'm like, maybe I'll be slightly marginally worse business operator, but I'm gonna not that's not what I'm gonna be listening to. And um I'm off social media and like I'm a little bit optimizing more for the mental health side of things with that.
I think that's gonna bite people later on. I think just this like go go
Burnout.
go,
Yeah.
even more than burnout. It's burnout plus they're gonna come to realization of have you heard the term hungry ghost? They just keep feeding hungry ghosts, just keep feeding it,
Yes.
and it keeps growing and growing.
Yes.
And the more you feed
They
it, the more you want. And people are going to get to this moment of, I miss my kids. I miss my family. My parents, grandparents are gone. What did I do?
yes.
And that I think is going to be a big mental breakdown or point where I don't think society's ready for that. And I think you're starting to see a little bit of it. I mean, you
Well,
saw
that's
it.
actually what you're saying is exactly why it's something I'm really passionate about actually, and it's why like we actually think bringing that, the retreat to the world is
Mhm.
actually important because what you're talking about is it's only growing exponentially where
Yeah.
the like the space that you can lose yourself within if you're trying to keep up with anything now, like talk about hungry ghosts, there's more stuff to learn. I totally agree with you. I think there's going to be just like massive existential stuff
Yeah.
that people are dealing with.
Yeah, and at least we had the ability to not have this growing up in middle school, and I mean, I didn't have a cell phone, I don't think, until high school, but like now I just feel sorry for kids. Everything's recorded. Everything you do, everything you say, it's all recorded, and you're keeping up with your neighbor and your friend and your enemy, and it's just a really toxic place. And I think just going back to the basics, building a good family, building a good life is really, really important and more needed now than ever.
I'm very consciously like on that. There's decisions where it's like, okay, the new whatever claw model or like whatever it is comes out, and it's like everyone, you're on group chats and it's like all blowing. It's like I'm literally ignoring. I'm just like not dealing with it. And it's like maybe, you become like the old school, whatever. But I think there's a way of operating where you don't need to be like up on every single thing, and you can have that balance and still do pretty well for yourself.
So I have this indicator that's saying people are seeking back in the day, the old school days, so bad. So if you look at any of the 1990s trucks for sale right now, and you're talking single cab, long bed, especially the Ford Power Stroke, the Dodge Cummins, dude, those trucks are 150 plus miles. Some have 250 plus miles, 60 grand, 70 grand.
Really?
And I mean, some are collectors, but there's so many people that are like, I'm done with the navigation. I'm done with the beeping. I'm done with all of these things, because when technology is good, it's good. And Chris is going to throw some hate at me, but like, dude, I get in my Tesla and it's amazing. It drives me everywhere. It does everything for me. You just need your phone. You don't need anything. The more technology, the more things go wrong. And it's always that one thing that's just like, okay, now this is wrong. Then you get in your house and like, okay, now your speaker is not connecting to your Bluetooth, and then now your internet's not working. And it's just like, when do you get a break? And so I do think that people are seeking that old school, old days kind of thing, and BlackBerry and all these other companies might come back.
I'm really trying to carve out time for meditation daily now. And like, it's hard because like, you're like, well, if I spent that hour or that half hour, whatever, on working, it will give me an edge. But it's like, I just, yeah, I think that I think what I think it might be interesting where the pendulum may swing back in an interesting way.
Back to franchise. We were talking about the addiction of building franchise, getting more and more portfolio. I mean, I've seen some stuff on Biz Buy Sell that a portfolio of 19 franchise locations. I mean, that's incredible. And they're doing really, really well. That person is retiring or whatever the situation may be. So, and we were also talking about the family, right? The person, the mom that wants to get out of corporate but has kids and wants to jump into something, the dad. What are the parameters for ETA? Can people say, well, I am a hairdresser, or I am a plumber, or I am a accountant? I don't have $500,000 to invest into a business. I don't have the working capital necessary. I know there's a lot of restrictions on franchise. What are your thoughts there?
I think it's one of the really cool things about ETA. It's probably the biggest misunderstanding is that you really don't need that much money. You probably need a little bit, tens of thousands. If you're really savvy, you can sometimes get away with it where you're putting, 10 grand or something. So I do think it's definitely super accessible. It depends on the franchise, obviously. There's certain ones like McDonald's where, or other ones where you do need a certain net worth and all that. But
Yeah.
I think with ETA and franchises, there's sort of a model for anyone. So
Yeah, I think so too. I think if you really want something bad enough, you figure out a way. And there's a lot of resources out there now.
I do think the one thing that you do need to have is you need to be willing to bet on yourself, and you do need to be willing to take some risk. Like, there's no risk-free path with it. It can be definitely scary at times, but as long as you're willing to bet on yourself, and you're willing to do the work to sort of go about it the right way, a pretty high probability of success.
Yeah, absolutely. With anything entrepreneur, you have to have a conviction. You have to understand the space, know why you're getting into it, and you have to have a passion. I think you alluded to this earlier. When you convey that passion, it comes through in your work. It comes through when you're leading your employees, when you're leading your cap table. I mean, that's how folks raise capital. It's not because you have the best idea. It's literally an investment in the founder and the way you can storytell. And you have to believe in yourself. And I think a lot of people lack self-confidence, which is fueled by society today. When 90% of things that you see on social media is fake, people still compare themselves to it. And so they have this really bad experience with their own life, and they're super unhappy. Having the confidence to move forward from the napkin idea, and this we're talking about can be, I want to start my own restaurant, I want to acquire a restaurant, I want to move into a franchise space. And like you said, you don't have to have a net worth of $20 million. You can do something for tens of thousands.
Yeah, I actually think there's something on the social media and like comparing yourself to others front that you just mentioned. I think it's really interesting. I think that with ETA and franchises, usually there is some kind of a J curve or like a difficult 1 or 2 years or 3 years or whatever that you have to put in, where it's like you look at, okay, well, I'm going to make this much money. That doesn't sound great. I could go get a job in, a W-2 job and make 2 times or 3 times that. It's like, oh, well, I'm just going to do that. But if you look ahead, 3 years, there's this like crossing point where all of a sudden with ETA, you are, you're building an asset, your work-life balance is way better, and you can just start like scaling your income in a totally different way that you
Yeah.
can't with W-2s. In corporate America, middle management, like getting up to whatever, 200, 300,000, like that's pretty doable. But then going to 400, 500, 600, 700, that becomes harder and harder. Whereas with ETA and franchising, getting to 300 is freaking brutal. But then getting from 300 to 400, 400 to 500 is so easy once you've gotten it. I mean, relatively,
Right.
And I just find it really interesting. Like it's with myself. I have to check myself because, you look around. I mean, I've looked around over the last 2 years and I'm like, man, like you said, why am I doing this? Like, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
But then, like, even now I'm just starting to see like 3 months out, 6 months out where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just now reaching this turning point where all of a sudden that math is going to change. And then, a year later, 2 years later, people are like, oh my God, that's amazing. How did you get there? But I think it's interesting. There's something about like the social media culture, the comparing yourself to others culture, that idea of like 1 year or 2 years or 3 years of taking a pay cut and having to go through that. People just won't do it.
And it's really tough. And I've said this on other episodes, but society really punishes folks that fail. And we should really encourage failure in the sense of failing forward. And a lot of people aren't willing to do that and don't have the courage to do that. And I think entrepreneurship is a great step. And I mean, the biggest thing I learned at Wharton was, how do you get from the labor side to the capital side? Because our country favors the capital side, from our tax structure to everything else. How do you get from labor to capital? And once you do that, you actually start building real generational wealth. If that's what you want, you start adding value like you're doing, not just with one location, but with 3, with 6 within the next 12 months. And you're actually adding value to society, meaning tutoring people, with hiring folks, training folks, and giving real value back.
You mean like not renting your time, but
Exactly.
like building. Yeah.
You're not giving away your time. Yeah, you're getting a little bit of a paycheck, but you hit that 300 mark. I mean, you can add 2, 3, 4, 5 more locations and you exponentially grow, like you were saying. With corporate America, sometimes that's all people know, and they either have the golden handcuffs on, meaning they just keep getting more equity, just a little bit more, or they just don't have the step of courage, because you have to take that first step. The biggest step to entrepreneurship is that first step, and it requires all the courage that you have. And if you can't take that first step, you can have a PhD, you can have an MD, you can have a JD, whatever it is. If you don't take that first step and have the courage to do so, it doesn't matter in regards to entrepreneurship. It's a tough game, but I think it's worth it. I think being in the trenches, you're absolutely learning, and those skills are transferable, and you can
Yeah.
apply those to build more wealth, to build a bigger portfolio later on down the road, and you already know how
Yeah.
to do it.
And if you're not only wanting to optimize for wealth, but you're also wanting to optimize for work-life balance or
Right.
just having some free time, I feel like with the W-2 route, that doesn't, it's pretty rare to, get up to 6, 700,000, a million or more. Like as an entrepreneur, it's totally doable. I mean,
Right.
that's sort of the path.
So once you have 3 or 4 locations and say you want to sell, what's the restrictions on a sale by the franchisor? Do they have to approve it? Does the buyer have to get approved by the franchisor? How does that work?
um, yeah, they do. Um, I have not, I guess where that comes into play more is if you have some really marquee territories, they're probably going to be more restrictive about that. I haven't heard too many stories like, yeah, when you start getting into bigger deals, when, you have a portfolio of like 5 centers and it's making serious revenue, I think the bigger you get, the more, uh, restrictive the franchisor gets. But you are like, especially with a franchise like Mathnasium, which is, there's a lot of people, and I mean, it's a good business, and if anything, the problem I've faced is that it's too competitive. So it's like finding deal flow is really brutal because there's so many buyers.
Hmm.
um you don't, I mean, at least within Mathnasium, you don't have to worry about finding a buyer. If you're at 500,000 in net income or a million in net income, like there's going to be so many private equity shops that will snap you up in a minute, or other bigger owners.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. I think the franchise space is really interesting. I've looked at it myself. There's kind of niche spaces that I like about it. And I do agree with you that if you have a risk tolerance that's a little bit lower, franchise could be a correct route for you because of the model. It's already proven, it's already built out. You have places to go, the processes are there. You just have to follow, connect the dots. And I think it's really well, and it works well for some people. Um, Colby, you've done all these great things. You've hit 30 under 30 list. Um, you've really excelled in everything that you've done. You've worked at incredible companies. You've built incredible companies either within or your own. You went to Wharton, the best finance school out there. Um, where does your ambition come from? What inspires you?
Ever since I was little, I always had this internal mantra that just said, I want to reach my potential. And I never really quite knew what that meant, but that was just always this sort of burning thing within me. And I feel like it really got lit after college. So like early 20s is when I just got super hungry. I guess it's different for everyone, but I feel like it's more just sort of this internal wiring or something like that.
It's kind of that light bulb that has a little bit of energy and keeps going. And yeah, that's interesting.
I will say too, I feel like it's shifted for me over time because when I was in my 20s, it was just like, I just want to, I want to be worth $100 million, and I want to like, have the coolest job or whatever. And so it was very outcome driven. And now it's more, I am, it's kind of like a working meditation of actually every single morning I focus on this is, before I start work for the day, like not thinking about the outcome, not working for the fruits of what I'm working for. Um, and really just more focusing on like the craft and, also I think more, trying to do good in the world. And I think it's actually like a totally different energy source. It's like one is very, kind of like personal and you're just trying to get stuff for yourself, and the other is a little bit more like, what can I do for the world and how can I give back? And it's a little
Mm.
bit more purpose driven. And so over the years, I think it's shifted for me.
Yeah, I had a friend tell me once, you have to separate purpose from money. And once you digest that, you have a different outlook on life, because society tells us your purpose is your portfolio, your purpose is your net worth. And I think separating your purpose and money really gives you an incredible outlook on life, because your purpose is totally separate from money. It doesn't really matter. What is your purpose? Is your purpose, it could be anything. And it could be helping others. It could be being there for somebody. This purpose every single day, it's different. And so separating purpose and money is really an interesting thought conversation to have with yourself.
100%. I think there's a lot of potential regret and emptiness if you're just purely optimizing for net worth and money and all that,
Goes back to the hungry ghost.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Cool, man. Really appreciate you coming on. This has been really, really great. Thanks for the insight. I think a lot of folks will find franchise interesting and obtainable to a lot of folks, because I think there's this false narrative of you have to have $1 million to even think about getting a franchise, but that case is not true in most instances.
Yeah, I actually, I feel like there's a lot of people having a really rough, especially like young, early, like college grads right now with AI who are just getting murdered in the job market. And
Yeah.
it gives me a lot of pleasure trying to get the word out a little bit about this path, because I didn't know it existed. And it took me, being in like an Ivy League MBA to learn about it, which is, unfortunate. That hope, would love, like, not everyone's going to be able to do that. It's a really great path. And so just getting the word out about it is always fun, for sure.
Well, thanks, man. Really appreciate it. And best of luck. You're building an incredible business and a portfolio. And I love the aspect of wellness. That's amazing. It's really good to hear in this, all the noise that we have to filter through.
Thank you. Yeah, I literally heard the hungry ghost thing like on the other day. So it's funny you brought that up. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, man.
All right, cool. Take care and keep crushing it with the podcast. It's awesome.
Legal disclaimer: the views and opinions and statements expressed in this podcast are those of individual speakers and do not reflect the views of their organizations or the producer. This content is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as medical, financial, legal, tax, or investment advice. You should always consult appropriate professionals before making decisions related to your health, finances, business, or legal matters. References to any companies or services do not constitute endorsements. The producer and participants disclaim all liability for actions taken based on this content and make no representations as to its accuracy or completeness.